Let's get more on this in some of the day's news with the Deputy Nationals leader, Perin Davey. Thanks for your time. Do you look at that and think, do we need to get Peter Dutton a bit more popular? Is that ideal, that the Australian people have warmer feelings towards him?
Oh, look, it's really good news that he's, we're on the same numbers as Albanese, and that means that we as a team need to shine brighter than the Labor Party. The overall Newspoll is good news, but we can't be complacent, because you're absolutely right. To win the election, we need to win back seats, and that's not a simple prospect across the board. We need to focus on what Australians are focused on, and that is the cost of living, that is the impact and the reversal of real wage growth, that is the cost of power prices, that is their mortgages. We really need to focus and show people that we are the alternative government that they're looking for.
And you do that by initially criticising the government, and then you've got to sort of get your own policies going. Are we switching to that part of the phase now, or do we have to wait a bit longer before we get sort of your alternative view on things?
We are working every day on our alternative policies and what we will propose. But
they're sitting there ready to go?
They will be released all in due course.
They're sitting there printed off, ready to roll out?
We're working on them. We're working on them.
Okay. Murray-Darling Basin Plan is something you're opposing in terms of what the government's put up. They've got agreement from the Greens. What are your issues with what's... well, I think the legislation isn't quite finely detailed, but we know about the deal, right? What do you make of this?
Well, the deal is absolutely that the government is going to resort to buybacks to recover water under the last parts of the Murray-Darling Basin Plan. The government has been entirely focused on just this one part, but we have done a lot over the last 13 years to deliver on the Basin Plan. Resorting to buybacks is the simplest, the laziest form of water recovery, and has the biggest impact on regional communities. Regional communities have been calling out, saying there are other ways, there are better ways, do not resort to buybacks. The government has, and part of this legislation actually removes any test to make sure there's no social and economic impact. So they're actually admitting, we know this is going to hurt communities, we don't care, we're going to buy it back anyway.
The original plan was done by scientists with a lot of community buy-in as well, and the environmental flow, the number was decided upon to have a minimum amount of sustainability while not hurting communities. So don't you support that idea and that principle that was also thrashed out by scientists and communities?
Well, and I support the original agreement that was reached between the then Water Minister Tony Burke and the then Opposition Water spokesperson Barnaby Joyce to ensure there was a socio-economic impact test inserted into the Basin Plan to protect the communities for this last part of the water recovery plan. So I guess what the issue is there
is that the environmental flow is still needed according to the experts, but we're getting to a point where maybe communities will be affected. And you're saying as a result, pick the communities over the environment? Well, and isn't that short term? Because ultimately everyone needs the river to keep healthy. Even
the science back in the day, back in 2012, the science said without addressing constraints, without addressing these other issues, you will not get any better environmental improvements with the extra water that they're now targeting. So the government is now putting that extra water ahead of dealing with constraints and dealing with the other issues that will enable us to get the better environmental outcomes.
But maybe
they're putting the cart before the horse.
It's about time as well, and we're entering El Nino. I mean,
but if you can't...
This is becoming more urgent right now in a dry period, isn't it? That's when the health...
Well, we are entering into a dry period. The government is buying a piece of paper. They're not actually creating new water or extra water. And when we get into a dry period, my farmers, my irrigators get zero water for that piece of paper, and so too does the government. So this idea, this concept that they're going to be able to prevent drought happening in Australia is farcical. That is not what will happen. They will hold the water licences. They have a portfolio of water that they've got to manage. They've got to manage that water better. That's what we've been calling for all along.
So, that aside, though, with the settings that will be ushered in under this, it's more likely with more water flowing or less water taken out of it that the river will be healthier at the end of an El Nino system. Well, whether the balance is right, I get that you've made that argument, But still, if you're on the side of the river system, this is a better chance than doing nothing.
This is my biggest fundamental problem. People are pitting farmers against the river system. Farmers want a healthy river. Without a healthy river, farmers can't farm. Irrigators can't irrigate.
They might be willing to take more of a risk because they have a livelihood to worry about.
Because they live on the river.
Yeah, I'm not saying that as a way of what are the farmers doing, but if they're asked to decide on things, they will probably err on, let's take a bit more out and see how it goes. If someone in there is in charge of the river's health, they'll say, no, let's not go.
Farmers can't just wake up and take more out.
I know that, but in terms of their view on it, I'm not saying that they're taking it out.
What all farmers are asking for is to be able to keep the water that they are currently entitled to. They're not asking for any of the water that's already gone to the environment back. They're not asking for anything other than to be able to keep doing the job producing food and fibre for the nation.
All right, we'll see how this detail plays out. I'm sure I'll talk to you about it. It's an issue that affects a lot of communities I know. Perin Davey, thanks for your time.
Thank you.